I know Donald Trump probably knows more than the average person about what's in these files.
And he
so
promised whatever's in them, he promised he would release them if he became president. So what is going on, do you think?
Well, look, I think when you arrive in Washington, D.C., you see a lot of things you didn't expect to see, and you realize then, while that information has been classified for as long as it has, I can only imagine the information being in those, the names being in those files, and what it would do to our country and the world. If it was released, and that's what I'm assuming is being thought about.
Okay. Let's hear from Republican commentator Elizabeth Pipko, a former party spokesperson. I asked her about this line in one of the emails. Of course he, Trump, knew about the girls.
Well, look, I can only imagine that for those that are reading this, they are thinking that he asked Elaine to stop is, pretty, self-explanatory, that he was already on the path to what eventually we know ended up with him kicking Jeffrey Epstein out of his club. I have to tell you, I woke up to the news of these emails and I somehow fell for the same scam that I've been falling for 10 years. Even though I've worked for Donald Trump for 10 years and seen this happen time and time again, I read these headlines. I thought I would see some kind of damning information, and all I saw was that people were accusing Donald Trump of something that we know didn't happen, because the girl that is mentioned in these emails, and I hate to even talk about her because I know she ended her life, which is a horrible thing to even have to continue speaking about, but she ended her life. Her name was redacted. We can ask Democrats why that is, but she already came out and said that nothing ever happened with Donald Trump, and that's the girl that's being discussed in these emails again, unfortunately, after taking her own life, obviously because of this entire situation. So I, again, don't understand why these emails continue to come out with absolutely zero information. If anything, they kind of make Donald Trump look even cleaner. He continues to be the most investigated man in the world with absolutely nothing coming out on him.
In another email, Democrats say they redacted the names because they're protecting all the survivors. These emails suggest to some that Donald Trump was absolutely aware of what Epstein was doing.
It's very possible. I think most people were aware. I grew up being pretty aware of what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. As long as I've known that name, I've kind of known what he was up to. It's unfortunate that we have to continue talking about it, knowing for many years, not only that we've known what was going on, but how many people, how many very high-profile people have been suspected of being associates of his and being involved in the same disgusting behavior. Again, I have seen nothing.
What really surprises many people, including Republicans, is why hasn't the Trump administration, why has Donald Trump not just released the lot, which is what he was campaigning on last year before the US presidential election? He promised they'd all be out there.
Well, look, I have been critical of the administration on this, really basically only because Pam Bondi came out and said, I have this information on my desk, it's going to be released. That's the mistake that I saw here, and I think they should be held accountable for that. She should not have said that. At the same time, I'm not someone that expected all this to come out. I know how our government works. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things that are not going to come out. I know Donald Trump probably knows more than the average person about what's in these files.
And he
promised
whatever's in them, he promised he would release them if he became president. So what is going on, do you think?
Well, look, I think when you arrive in Washington, D.C., you see a lot of things you didn't expect to see, and you realize then, while that information has been classified for as long as it has, I can only imagine the information being in those, the names being in those files, and what it would do to our country and the world. If it was released, then that's what I'm assuming is being thought about.
OK, so you think it's OK that he's not fulfilled his promise?
I think when he says that he's going to do as much as he can, he truly did believe he released as much as he could. I also think that he knows that if people are going to keep badgering, if people are going to keep asking questions, if Congress is going to get an opinion here, eventually, if they have to be released, they will be released. And he will say, look, I didn't want this. This is the reason I didn't want this out. It's out. Now we have to pick up the pieces and start over. This is what I warned you about.
Why does he keep calling them a Democrat hoax? I mean, they're clearly not, are they?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious why, because emails come out like this morning to try to paint Donald Trump in a negative light as if he had anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein and his behavior, and that's just not the case.
Which bit is the hoax? I mean, those emails existed. They've been released today. Which bit is the hoax?
The hoax is that no one cared to ask about the emails when Joe Biden was in the White House and they had all this information. They care when Donald Trump is in the White House so that they can try to tie him to these disgusting crimes. Well, that's the obvious hoax.
Maybe they also care because he promised he would release them if he became president, and now he's president and hasn't released them.
You're giving the media a lot more benefit than I will give them after what I've witnessed the last 10 years.
The media? No, I'm asking why the president doesn't just release them.
Well, no, you asked me why people think it's why he refers to it as a hoax, a Democrat hoax. He refers to it as a Democrat hoax because Democrats and the mainstream media are talking about this so that they can tie him to something disgusting, and they had no interest in talking about it when Joe Biden was in there.
So release them all, and then we can see. if he's associated or not?
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that there's very good reason why all this information that's been confidential for as long as it has been should not be released to the entire world.